Hey everybody, this is Eve West. Thank you for tuning into my YouTube channel. This channel is dedicated to a book that I wrote. It's called Follow. My book deals with spirituality on a more holistic viewpoint from not just looking at spirituality from a purely psychological standpoint, but also in metaphysical, but also a earthly aspect to us as well. Typically in the matrix or society, whatever you want to call it, we're forced to play a role or assume an ego, if you will. An ego is just I consider an ego to be a false personality. Our ego is created by different constructs of the matrix, such as religion, education, media and entertainment, just various different constructs that just create our false self. And so my book pretty much exposes those things, and I oscillate between how the matrix created me and created my false ego. So I kind of oscillate between a microcosm of my life and then a macrocosm of the world at large. And so I represent a very feminine energy. Although I look at spirituality in a holistic way, I also represent a very feminine energy. My ego is very feminine. So I'm definitely a lover of women, so to speak. But regardless of what, I feel that my message may not be as well received because we have a very patriarchal system. And so since our system is very patriarchal, it's it's kind of like fighting against the tide, so to speak. I guess you can consider me to be the last Jedi in a way. Eve, the feminine energy, the feminine intuitive right brain energy of Eve is often targeted. It's targeted by our concept of God. And so God would be the more patriarchal, masculine aspect of a human being, whereas me, I'm definitely a feminine, exacerbated feminine aspect, if you will. So very polarized, and our universe is very polarized. But I offer a different perspective, and I feel that of a lot of the topics that I talk about, if it offends you, there's something that you definitely need to integrate within yourself. Whenever we're bridging our consciousness and our unconscious mind together, we're faced with aspects of ourselves that we've dissociated, and we're faced with aspects that we don't like. The thing is that whenever you are, whenever you feel that you're being persecuted or judged in any way, in a way you're judging yourself. And I know that sounds odd, but this unconscious aspect of you is judging you. And so, it's important to, whenever you're playing an avatar and you're an ego and you're experiencing friction, to really in the back of your mind know that this is just the play of existence. And if we did not have an opposite aspect of ourselves, life would just be in stasis, and we would not be able to experience life in its fullness in a way. So life is not intended to be super duper polarized where you're always fighting against the tide, but you have to have some type of equilibrium in within the universe, so to speak. So the feminine energy, the universe is definitely starved of Eve and starved of truth, and so that's why I wrote this book and I created this channel. This video is a follow-up to a video that I just did. It's called Black Magic, and so in that video I may have offended a number of different people, because Black Magic is a chapter that deals with melanin. And so melanin is definitely targeted within the matrix. Everyone has melanin. It doesn't matter whether you're black or white or everything in between. But when I talk about melanin, I talk about how when we incarnate and we're put through the reincarnation system, as we continue to reincarnate, our melanin gets extracted until we become a master race, if you will, a race of blonde-haired, blue-eyed people. And so the less melanin you have, the more you function from the reptilian brain. And the reptilian brain is governed by the five senses. And so pretty much the matrix hijacks the five senses, which you can see, taste, touch, smell, and hear. it dominates us by the five senses. That's why people, they consider governments like the U.S. government to be run by corporations. If you look at the word corporation, the prefix corp means body, and so basically, our whole world is run by bodies, is run by the reptilian five senses. And so the purpose is to maintain your melanin. You know, we're all Jews here. We're Jews. And so since we're all Jews, we need to try to maintain as much melanin as possible so we can actually keep our superhuman capabilities and abilities, because there's a lot of power in melanin. When you think about melanin, you think about the third eye and how the third eye makes melanin, and how when the third eye is functioning properly, you have insight into a situation. You know, you're not just living by your reptilian brain, but you have insight. You have a light within you. I think research even shows that the pineal gland, or the third eye, even is illuminated within the brain. Like there's a light that it gives off within the brain itself. And so you can kind of even equate the third eye with illumination and with Lucifer. I know when people hear the word Lucifer, they think to themselves, "Oh my gosh, Lucifer is horrible." But Lucifer just means light bearer, and light means knowledge. Like when people say that kid is really bright, they're talking about the kid is really smart. And so when we talk about light, I want you to really think about knowledge and intelligence. And so basically, when we first start out in the zodiac and we incarnate and we have all of our melanin, you know, in a way we have truth. And so the truth is always taken away from us lifetime after lifetime. As our melanin gets extracted, we eventually become just a Nordic looking race. And everyone starts out black. And so, you know, the purpose of this information I'm giving is just to actually have people find connection with their roots, so to speak. You know, it's funny, you know, when you're blonde hair, if you are, you know, blonde hair, blue eyed, or what have you, and to realize that, you know, you did not start out that way, that you were very much a super duper melanated being. It's you know, this video is to show connection, if you will, to your roots and to where you came from, and how you know, we are all different races, because the lords of this world, I would call them the lords of the rings, because they hijack the masculine aspect of a human being. But race was injected, and these different cultures were injected into our false matrix society to create separation. And so oftentimes in the matrix, the false creators have us celebrate our enslavement, if you will. You know, like I've talked about in various other videos, like the birthday cake and how we blow our candles out on the birthday cake. When you reincarnate and you have a birthday, you have a death day. And so when you blow out your candles, that's symbolizing you're blowing out your consciousness, or your awareness. And so that's enslavement when you don't have knowledge. Knowledge is power. And so that's what makes the elite so powerful, because they have knowledge and we don't. So, you know, in a way, you know, when we're celebrating, you know, different cultures and things like that, you know, in a way, I guess you could say it is celebrating the things that separate us. However, and from a patriarchal standpoint, more masculine standpoint, you know, celebrating each other is like celebrating ourselves, because we are everyone that we see. And there's an interconnectedness to everything in the universe. So, you know, the last video, I did not want to make it out like, you know, to really offend anyone, and you know, and to, you know, say that race is, you know, to sound like, you know, one race is better than another, or what have you. It's just that melanin is very important, and everyone has melanin, unless you have like albinism or something like that. But, you know, melanin actually is very much tied to our emotions. And so it's the emotions that makes a human being human. It was interesting. I was looking at a show on, I'm not sure if it was on National Geographic or the History Channel or something like that. And so they were talking about making robots. And, robots, they were trying to make them with super, really human capabilities, if you will. And so when they were making these robots, scientists noticed that they could not make the robots have emotions. That emotions is something that can't be quantified into physical reality. So what does that mean? Your emotions make you God, basically. You can't quantify emotions. With earth, fire, water, air, those things cannot animate. They're inanimate unless you have the Christ consciousness to animate earth or matter. And so that goes to show how powerful your emotions are. And emotions are connected to melanin, and melanin is connected to insight, which is the third eye. And so, just to kind of paint a picture, like for example, if you ever seen the movie Matilda. And so if you've seen the movie Matilda, you will see in that movie she has the ability of telekinesis, if you will. She can move matter with her mind. And if you look at that movie, you see that Matilda only does this when she's able to conjure up emotions. So, without conjuring up emotions, she can't really do it. So it's the emotions that gives her superhuman godlike capabilities. And so in the Matrix, we see that people with the most melanin are targeted because melanin has these superhuman telekinesis, these superhuman superhero capabilities. So you have to keep those beings, if you will, really dumbed down and stupid, because if people who have a lot of melanin realize their divinity, then you just really have a whole bunch of superheroes running around. You can't really do anything with a being who's super duper melanated. You can't tell them, to wait in line, or you can't tell them to they don't fit into the cog. They don't fit into a system. They don't fit into the matrix. They're the divergent. And so whenever you have these types of people, making them feel like they're mere mortals is very important for you to maintaining control of them. And so the emotions give you the superhuman capabilities. Like another example I use in my book, I use in Black Magic, is like, say if a mother sees her child underneath a car or something like that. There have been stories and depictions where people have done superhuman things. A mother will take that car and lift it off of the ground to get to her child. And so when someone does something like that, like say if a mother sees her kid under a car and lifts the car off the ground, this is superhuman. The mother doesn't really think about it, because your thinking mind, your psychological mind, is going to intercept your human capability, your superhuman capabilities. If you put it into the thinking mind, your mind will say, well, I'm too small, this car weighs much more than I do, whatever the case is. But the mother does not think, because that mother sees that kid as an extension of herself. And so when she does this, she doesn't think, she just does it. And that goes to show that the mother had a surge of emotions that allowed her to get in touch with her superhuman superpowers, so to speak. And so, I talk about how the more we're pressed out into the reincarnation system, the more reptilian we become, and the more linear in our thinking we are. And in a way, it works out for us in a way within the matrix system, to be more linear in a way, because you function better within the matrix. You're more of a reaper of the earth. But at the same time, if you were able to, get in touch with these superhuman capabilities, you wouldn't necessarily have to reap the earth. The earth is yours. You get the keys to the kingdom, so to speak. So, it's like a quantum leap, so to speak, to actually get activation of your melanin. Whereas, if you are a super duper, like if you're not as melanated and you're more linear in your thinking and more rational, it just takes a little bit more time, or a lot more time, I should say, to manifest things into the material. And so it takes a lot of working at things. And you know, this reality is a slave reality. The way that we even learn things, to me, is not you know, it's not natural. You know, it's not natural. Like, you know, when I think about myself going through the school system, you know, and I've been a teacher as well. I taught school for over 13 years. And so to look at all the methods that I use to have my kids memorize things, you know, just, you know, when I would teach word roots and stems and things like that, I would have my kids, you know, draw pictures to make associations to remember their stems. And, you know, I would have them, you know, write sentences with words that contain the stem, you know, and have them write sentences to put the words in context, whatever the case is. And, you know, those things were very much, you know, snail ways of learning something. You know, if you really want to learn something, all you do is program your unconscious mind to learn it. So what does that mean? Like, for example, you know, in my book, I talk a lot about brainwave frequencies. And so whenever you're in a theta brainwave frequency, which is I call the Christ, it's a state of hypnosis. All you have to do is just program yourself within that state. And as you wake up into your beta brainwave frequency, your waking state, you just know that stuff. And even in Delta, you know, if, like, for example, in The Matrix, when you see Neo, when Neo talked about he knows Kung Fu, he didn't learn Kung Fu by going to Kung Fu class, or, you know, having Morpheus teach him certain moves and things like that. He was programmed. He was programmed within a theta or a delta brainwave frequency during deep relaxation. And all this information was uploaded to him, and then he instantly knew Kung Fu. So that goes to show that the creators of our reality don't want us to know anything, because if that were the case, we wouldn't have to go to school. We would have ownership and sovereignty to program ourselves as we see fit to know whatever we want to know. So all of this stuff about studying and creating notes and Cornell notes and, you know, doing all of these different things to, you know, to gain information, there's a very much a much more efficient way of doing that, besides what we've learned within the school system. So, you know, I just really just did this follow-up, if you will, to Black Magic, because I really want people to, you know, really understand what I'm saying, and you know, to realize that regardless of what, we all have to go back to our roots. And you know, we've all been super duper melanated at one point, and you know, my melanin is in jeopardy, if you will. You know, looking at my skin hue, it's a lot lighter, and so, you know, it's very difficult for me to come to terms with the fact that within another incarnation that I tip to the other side of the spectrum, and I lose, like, all of my God-given capabilities, you know, goddess capabilities, and become just a mere mortal, functioning solely by my reptilian brain, and believing in my story. And you know, that is the saddest state of being for the soul, because the soul knows that it's not immortal, that it has these godlike capabilities, but you know, the ego doesn't know that. The ego doesn't know that. And so if you don't have the ability to see past the ego, you know, you don't have that insight with your melanin, with your third eye, you know, you're working a 9 to 5, and you know, you're just a slave. You're a slave to the system. You're celebrating your enslavement with all these different holidays and things like that, and you know, that are meant just to keep you down and to make you, you know, just to I don't know, to mock you, to mock the fact that you don't even you're not even in touch with the godlike aspect of you. It's really, really sad. So, you know, this is just a follow-up to Black Magic. If you have questions and things like that, you can, you know, I definitely am open to answering questions. I have information in the comment section about how to, you know, contact me and, I will try to answer as many questions as I possibly can, and just try to maybe create some type of platform to where we can talk about, some of these issues, and not feel, not feel bad about, the things that we have to say. There's a song by Lupe Fiasco, and it's called Words I Never Said. I think that's what it's called, Words I Never Said. And so, you can't take back the words that you never say. You don't want to leave this incarnation, leave this mind, leave this body without really, talking about, the things that, I don't know, the things that you don't want to leave without getting everything off of your chest, so to speak. I definitely don't. So, in this next incarnation, I'm not supposed to have my godlike capabilities, and so the only thing I will have for my next avatar is this book, and are these videos. She will not have the insight to know exactly what she is, and so because of that, I have to fight to leave the word, because heaven and hell can pass away, but my words will never pass away. And so, when we think of the word, we think of the wand. This is my wand to leave this knowledge. So although I may be buried under my unconscious mind, the word itself will not be buried. And so there's definitely an agenda to bury Eve. She's definitely a target, the right brain, feminine, intuitive aspect of the soul. And so, regardless with melanin or not, that aspect of the mind will always be there as long as I have breath in my body, so to speak. So thank you guys for listening, and I will see you in my next video.